Welcome back to our third and last day of Vacation Bible School. I'm so glad you've been here this week. I've had such a great time telling you about God's true word, the Bible, and we've been talking about a man named Joseph. Does anybody remember what book we find Joseph's stories in? It's the first book of the Bible in the Old Testament. And if you said Genesis, you're right. We've been talking about Joseph from the book of Genesis. So yesterday, I told you about Joseph interpreting Potiphar's dreams. Do you remember what he dreamed about? He dreamed about the 7 fat cows and the 7 skinny cows, and the 7 full stalks of grain and the 7 skinny stalks of grain. And he said that there would be 7 years of food and then 7 years of famine or no food. Well, those 7 years are here, and the 7 years of famine that Joseph foretold have come. And in the land of Canaan, there is no food. The land of Canaan is where Jacob, who is Joseph's father, and Joseph's brothers live. And there's no food there. So Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy food. And Egypt is where Joseph is, because that's where his brothers sold him into slavery. So Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy food, and he sent all of his sons except for Benjamin. Benjamin stayed at home. And they came to buy food from Joseph because Joseph was the one that was selling food to the people. His brothers came, and do you know what they did? They bowed down before Joseph. They didn't recognize Joseph. They didn't even know that it was him. Joseph knew that it was his brothers, but his brothers didn't recognize him. Joseph actually put one of his brothers, named Simeon, into prison, and he told the other brothers that they were not allowed to come back to Egypt unless they brought Benjamin with them, the brother that was left at home. Jacob didn't want Benjamin to go, but the famine was so bad that Jacob let him go back with his brothers. See, Jacob's really sad. He doesn't want Benjamin to go. When they got back to Egypt, Joseph had a meal prepared for his brothers. See all this food they're eating? Joseph asked about his father Jacob, but seeing Benjamin, he had to get up and leave the room because he was just so sad and so happy all at the same time. He had all of these emotions. He was just so glad to see his family again and to see Benjamin again. So he had to leave the party, and he went in and cried. So Joseph came back to the table, and you know what? His brothers still didn't even know that it was him. They didn't even recognize their own brother. Joseph had a servant put his silver cup into Benjamin's sack. He had a silver cup, and Benjamin had a sack, and they put the silver cup into the sack. The next morning, the servant stopped them and found the silver cup. Joseph said, "The man in whose hand the cup was found shall be my slave." So one of the other brothers named Judah pleaded with Joseph and said, "Please keep me as a slave instead of Benjamin." And when Joseph saw this and heard about this, he saw that his brothers had changed. He cried and told them that he was Joseph, the brother that they sold into slavery long ago. Joseph forgave his brothers for treating him so badly. He said that God had sent him to Egypt so that Jacob's family could survive. Joseph brought his father Jacob and all his family to live in Egypt. Isn't that so great? Joseph forgave his family even though they treated him so badly. They were so unkind to him. They sold him as a slave into Egypt. But he forgave his brothers, and he had all his family come and live in Egypt with him. Did you know that my hero God forgives me, and I should forgive others that hurt me, just like Joseph? Your hero God forgives you. He is such a good God, and he wants us to forgive others, just like Joseph. All right, friends, that's our story for this week in Vacation Bible School. I'm just so glad I've gotten to be with you this week, and now we're going to finish our story. We've read part of it every day, and today we're going to read the whole thing and read it all the way to the end. And this is called Joseph Forgives His Brothers. A man named Jacob had 12 sons in Israel long ago. He loved the one named Joseph most and often told him so. He made a richly woven robe that Joseph proudly wore. His brothers didn't like the robe or that Jacob loved him more. Then Joseph shared some dreams in which his family bowed before him. The brothers thought he'd gone too far for them to just ignore him. I hate this boy, one brother said. He really makes me mad. If Joseph disappeared, he said, I know that I'd be glad. When Jacob sent him out where sheep were herded by his brothers, one said, let's kill this dreamer now, but the oldest stopped the others. Don't kill him, please, his brother said. Let's sell the boy instead. We'll take his robe, smear it with blood, and tell father that he's dead. So they sold Joseph to some men who came along that way, and these men took him as a slave to Egypt that same day. Poor Jacob thought his son was dead. His brothers soon forgot him, but God kept Joseph safe with Potiphar, the man who bought him. With God's help, Joseph did so well each job his master gave that Potiphar soon liked him more than any other slave. Then Joseph was accused of sin, and soldiers quickly jailed him. His master's wife had lied, but even then God never failed him. In prison, Joseph helped explain the dreams of men around him, and when the ruler had a dream, he searched him out and found him. The ruler Pharaoh shared his dreams of cows and stalks of grain, and Joseph said, this means the land will have a lack of rain. But first the cows and crops will thrive, and we can store up food. We'll have enough to eat and more to sell when things aren't good. The Pharaoh was so pleased by this, he said to all the land, hear this, my people. Joseph now is second in command. It happened just as Joseph said. Crops grew for 7 years, but then came 7 years of drought, of hunger, pain, and tears. In Israel, Jacob and his sons had also seen no rain. He sent them down to Egypt with some money to buy grain. When Joseph saw his brothers bowing at his feet, he cried. They didn't know him then, of course, because they thought he died. He told them who he was, forgave them, took them in his arms. God turned your evil deeds to good. He kept me safe from harm. The brothers hurried home and told their father what had occurred. Old Jacob said, I can't believe this good news that I have heard. He and his family packed and left their tents on desert sand to live in homes much better now in Egypt, Joseph's land. Thank you for joining me this week, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful summer, and we love you very much. Bye.